Do you want to buy a home in Minnesota but you're seeking some clarity on the initial costs? Then keep watching because I'm going to tell you everything you need to know so it's easier for you to set a goal. But make sure to stay till the end because I'm going to give you a tip on how to save on closing costs. Before I break down the costs, it's important that I let you know that there are down payment assistance programs available, and this can help you cover the cost of your down payment and your closing costs up to $17,000. And this comes either in the form of a monthly payment or a deferred interest-free loan that you pay when you sell the house. And all of this depends on your income and the income limits. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to me. Number one is down payment. So there are a lot of people that think that you need at least 20% down in order to buy a house, but that's just not true. It depends on your financing type, but the minimum requirements for conventional loans is 3%, for FHA, 3.5%, for VA loans, which are loans for veterans, they require 0% down, and USDA loans, which are loans if you buy in rural areas, that also requires 0% down. And the down payment assistance programs can actually help you cover a big chunk of this. Number two is Earnest Money. So Earnest Money is money that you submit once your offer is accepted, and this is telling the seller that you are serious about buying the house and that you are willing to forfeit it if you breach the contract in any way. But don't panic because there are 3 contingencies that are protecting you and that earnest money. And I don't want to go into too much detail about it, but just real quick, contingency number 1 is the inspection. So if the inspection comes back and there's a bunch of stuff wrong and you don't want the house anymore, you back out, you get your earnest money back. Then for the appraisal, which the appraisal is for the lender to determine the value of the house, if that comes in lower than the price that you offered, then and the seller is unwilling to negotiate, then you can back out and get your earnest money back. The third contingency is financing. And so for an example for this, if you were to lose your job and your loan was denied, you get your earnest money back. Now this can be any amount that you want it to be, but I know that sellers like to see around 1%, and down payment assistance cannot cover this, so it needs to be in your bank account. Number 3 is inspection. So this cost is going to vary from state to state and company to company, but I highly suggest that you don't just find the cheapest inspector because you want to make sure that they're very thorough. So for the company that I use, it's about $500 for the basic inspection. It depends on the square footage. But if you want a sewer scope, that's an additional $250. If you want a radon test, that's another $250. And if you're purchasing a house with a chimney and you want that inspected, that's going to be another $220. I always suggest getting all the inspections that you can. And so I always tell people to budget about $1,000 for this to make sure that you can have everything checked thoroughly. Unfortunately, if you have a bad inspection, you don't get your money back for this because the inspector did their job, but you are avoiding a huge money pit. Number 4 is appraisal. As I mentioned earlier, the appraisal is for the lender to determine the value of the house to ensure that they're not loaning you more money than the house is worth. Sometimes this is paid up front and other times it's wrapped up into the closing costs, but just to be safe, I always tell my clients to prepare for that to be an upfront cost. Number 5 is closing costs. So closing costs can vary, but they're usually about 2 to 4% of the purchase price. These include things like lender fees, title insurance, mortgage recording fees, and prepaid interest and home insurance. Some or all of these can be covered by down payment assistance programs, or you can also ask the seller to pay part of your closing costs. However, if the market is competitive, the seller is going to be a lot less likely to agree to that, but you can always try to increase your offer price to make up the difference. But the thing about this is that it's not always going to work because the house also needs to appraise. If that's something you want to do, you're definitely going to want to discuss that with your agent so you can analyze the homes in the area and see what those homes sold for. Now, as promised, a tip to help you save on your closing costs. So every agent does it a little bit differently, but ask your agent about the broker admin fee. Usually this is a fee that's charged by the brokerage and not the individual agent, but there are some agents that will add more to that and then take the difference. Like I said, everybody runs their business a little bit differently, but it's definitely worth a shot to negotiate it with your agent. Personally, I work for EXP and they don't require us to charge an admin fee, so I just waive it for all my buyers. If you have a savings goal, but you're also wondering if you can afford the Twin Cities, watch this video next.